wanted to maintain her independence, and so she moved into an assisted living facility in Daytona Beach, Florida, near the church where she faithfully attended 5 or 7 times a week, depending on how you're counting, for more than 2 decades. The facility had once been a fancy hotel where Frank Sinatra stayed, and you know that for a certain type of white lady who wears brightly color coordinated outfits bought on QVC, this is not a coincidence. She doesn't consider that coincidence, that's divine leading. My mom was a caring person. Her church ran housing for formerly incarcerated women, and my mom welcomed them all over for dinner every Sunday for years. And when she wasn't physically able to nourish them with her meatloaf or beef stroganoff or her 12-layer salads, my mom said that 7-layer salads were for amateurs. She still reached out with care. She welcomed each woman as they moved in with a stuffed lamb that played Jesus Loves Me when you wound it key in its abdomen, like this. She would sign them each, "Love, Grandma Nancy." And she would also say to each, if you've never had a grandma, you have one now. The early relationship between her and me had never been easy. By the time I was born, the last thing she needed in her overwhelming life, she was married by then 5 or 6 times, depending on how you're counting. The last thing she needed was me, a tender-hearted genderqueer who came fully formed from the womb, worried about the harp seals, sobbing when the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald came on, missing the school bus on rainy days, trying to save worms from being run over. She truly loved me in her own ferocious way. When I was 6, she chastised a lifeguard who refused to let me swim without wearing the top of my swimsuit, just like I wanted to wear just the bottoms. She said, "Can't you see she's not a normal girl?" But also, when I came out to her in my mid-20s, she ripped up my birth certificate and sent it to me. While this was a bit passive-aggressive, or aggressive-aggressive, as my therapist corrected me, I wasn't any treat as a young adult either. I was a messy, traumatized, judgmental queer, embracing quarter life with a demonstration sign in my hand, a very angry tattoo on my tricep. See how angry it is. How angry. And a huge chip on my shoulder. We found each other over the years, but our relationship was never perfect. My mom was tough. She lived 5 years in her 80s with a blood cancer that fells people in their 30s within months. But when it became clear that the blood cancer was progressing from inconvenient to, time to cancel your magazine subscriptions, she made her wishes clear. She wasn't afraid of dying. She loved Jesus and she knew where she was going. But she didn't want to be in pain and she didn't want to be alone. She asked whether I could travel to Florida for the big event. And, yes, I was going to be there. And, of course, all my siblings would be involved. But, and I'm not proud of this, being asked to join my mom for her final choir practice scratched a very youngest sibling itch. Did I mention I'm not proud of this? On collective road trips, an older sibling sometimes asks me if I need to go potty before we leave. Not asked, past tense when we were children. They ask. Present tense, present day. Since I clearly can't be trusted with my own, big kid potty schedule, it felt pedally good, if slightly absurd, to be tagged as the in-person, lead for my mom's end-of-life care. A friend asked if I might have, based on our past relationship, if my mom was maybe humoring me. I was like is a deathbed, being at her deathbed is like a participation trophy? Nah. I have several annoying personality characteristics, including some that really annoy my mom. And at times we had a really complicated relationship. And I am very likely to show up to nearly any occasion wearing spotless but ill-fitting cargo shorts and a secondhand Old Navy boys t-shirt that has been adorned with, tiny tacos or dogs or most often dinosaurs. But if you don't mind sashaying into heaven with someone who looks like, one guy said to me, the Indigo Girls took me clothes shopping for church clothes, I'm an excellent choice for a deathbed accompaniment. I'm unfortunately experienced, practical, sometimes funny, even, or perhaps especially some would argue, when circumstances are devastating. Maybe my mom was only throwing me a relationship bone. If that's true, I was going to be the best damn dog at the table. I don't know if that metaphor actually works. A few months later, when the time came, I arrived at my mom's assisted living facility, Frank Sinatra Memorial Hall, Old Blue Eyes Place, and found a new addition on the outside of her door jamb. DNR, do not resuscitate, handwritten on the door jamb. Good job on the clear messaging, I said, hugging her and pointing to the letters. Way to ask for what you need. Then I got closer. Mom, did you write that in red nail polish? I didn't want anyone to miss it. The letters dripped down like something from a true crime documentary. Like a murder, I said, Mom. It's excellent. It's a bold choice. And she laughed and looked very proud. 10 days later, her breathing changed. I moved from my chair to her bed, squeezed her hand, and said, I love you, Mom. I'm right here. And then she died. She got her wish. She was not alone. I was there, dripping tears onto her face and accidentally ruining the full face makeup she had put on 6 hours before she lost consciousness. The makeup mess probably wasn't her wish, but as in death, as in life, you don't always get approval on the final edit, you know? Because she was a smart fastidious lady who was very wisely, see fashion notes right before this, did not trust me to pick up her clothing for eternity. She'd already sent her burial outfit to the funeral home. She'd already sent it on ahead. But while they already had her clothing, the funeral home were super pokey about picking up her body. As Florida, I guess they had a lot of people in line. Even though the essence of her was gone, her body was still there, and she had specifically mentioned not wanting to be alone, so no matter how long it took, I intended to stay. The nurse who was doing the paperwork, it's incredible how much paperwork there is even for an extremely expected death. She asked if I needed anything, like something to eat. I hesitated. That nurse had plenty to do, but she had offered, and I was hungry. Yes, please, I said. She left the room for a moment, and then she turned to the doorway. Oh, kitchen's closed. I'll be right back. And then she disappeared. She didn't even give me a chance to say, no, don't worry about it. 20 minutes later, she returned with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The worst-looking peanut butter and jelly sandwich I'd ever seen. An abomination of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It wasn't just a whoops, we accidentally used stale bread. This sandwich showed such a profound lack of PB&J skill. I wondered not only if it was the first such sandwich she had ever made, this was definitely true, but whether she had even so much as seen one in the wild, even though she was just like, a middle-aged woman from Nebraska. My guess is that she had used a fork to scoop the peanut butter out of the jar, so it came out in a single ragged lump. She then used the same fork, again, this is my guess, to spread the peanut butter, but because of forks, they're not good for spreading, she mostly just speared holes in the bread. So the bottom slice was more spot where bread used to be than actual bread. She was clearly unfamiliar with the amount of jelly required for a single sandwich, and she overestimated the quantity by maybe 300 or 400%. This made it difficult to spread the jelly, which must have just sat atop the peanut butter like a strawberry snowcap on a crunchy Skippy mountain. The pieces of bread were slightly askew when she put them down, probably because she had to mush them all together. So when they were pressed, red oozed out from all the sides. She had also, very sweetly, very kindly, had attempted a cup of instant mac and cheese, but hadn't been able to dissolve the bright orange powder, so it clumped up on top of the pasta, looking very much like it had fought a bag of Cheetos and definitely lost. She placed the hot bowl next to the PB&J, which melted further and spread the jelly against the plate, so it looked like stage blood. She was so embarrassed to be handing me what looked less like a condolence dinner and more like a horror movie prop. I said, oh, thanks so much. Picked it up and took a bite. It was the very worst peanut butter and sandwich I've ever tasted. But also, in a what the hell kind of over-the-top metaphor of my relationship with my mom just showed up on my plate way, the very, very best. It was messy, but it was what I had, and it was what that nurse had to give. Done with care was more than enough. There's no time for perfection in the apocalypse. Not in the micro-apocalypse my family was enduring that moment, and the macro one we're all enduring right now. And I hadn't eaten all day, so let me tell you, I ate the hell out of that metaphor sandwich. And I raised the glass of unidentified lukewarm liquid that she had brought me. Ginger ale, embalming fluid, it's hard to tell. And she and I smiled at each other, and I made a silent toast to my messy mom, her equally messy, multi-gendered offspring, our messy relationship, and to loving imperfection in all its forms.